What if reality is never just one thing at a time? What if what modern physics calls superposition is what Ibn Arabi described centuries ago as the divine appearing in many forms at once? Ibn Arabi invites us to see reality not as fixed and singular, but as fluid, layered, and perpetually unfolding. In his metaphysical vision, existence is not a static structure, but the continuous act of divine self-disclosure. The one does not appear once and remain still. Rather, it reveals itself endlessly, through countless forms, states, and perspectives. What we call the world is not a finished product, but a living process of manifestation. Modern quantum physics reaches a strangely similar conclusion through a very different path. In quantum theory, a particle can exist in multiple states simultaneously until it is observed. This phenomenon, known as superposition, challenges the classical idea that something must be either this or that at the most fundamental level. Reality is not committed to a single outcome. It holds possibilities together without collapsing them until interaction brings one expression into focus. Ibn Arabi would recognize this immediately. He teaches that the divine reality is unlimited and therefore cannot be confined to one form, one name, or one expression. God manifests through infinite attributes, and every created thing is a specific locus where one or more of these attributes become visible. No single manifestation exhausts the real, each reveals something true, yet none reveals the whole. From this perspective, multiplicity is not a problem to be solved, but a truth to be understood. Ibn Arabi insists that God is both one and many, not alternately, but simultaneously. Unity does not cancel multiplicity, and multiplicity does not divide unity. Reality exists in a state of both and, not either or. This mirrors the logic of superposition, where contradictory states coexist without conflict at a deeper level of reality. The human tendency is to collapse reality. Too quickly, we label, define, and fix meanings because ambiguity feels uncomfortable. Ibn Arabi warns that this habit limits perception. When we insist that God must be understood in only one way, we reduce the infinite to our own conceptual boundaries. The divine, he says, appears according to the readiness of the perceiver. What you see depends on who you are and how you look. This is where consciousness plays a crucial role. In quantum mechanics, observation affects the outcome of an experiment. The act of measurement collapses superposition into a particular state. Ibn Arabi similarly emphasizes that perception shapes manifestation. The heart, the intellect, and the imagination each receive reality differently. What appears to one person as mercy may appear to another as power, distance, or intimacy. The difference lies not in the divine, but in the perceiving vessel. Ibn Arabi's concept of continuous creation deepens this parallel. He teaches that the universe is renewed at every instant. Each moment is a fresh manifestation, not a repetition of the previous one. Reality is recreated continuously, which means it is never exactly the same from one moment to the next. This constant renewal resembles the probabilistic nature of quantum reality, where outcomes are not predetermined but emerge in real time. Multiple manifestations also explain apparent contradictions in religious and spiritual experience. Different traditions, symbols, and doctrines may appear to conflict, yet Ibn Arabi sees them as diverse expressions of the same underlying truth. Each tradition reflects a particular divine name or attribute. To deny one in favor of another is to mistake partial vision for total knowledge. True wisdom lies in recognizing the legitimacy of multiple disclosures without confusion. The human being occupies a unique position within this dynamic reality. Ibn Arabi describes the human as a comprehensive mirror capable of reflecting many divine attributes at once. Unlike other beings that manifest specific qualities, the human can move between state strength and weakness, knowledge and ignorance, mercy and severity. This inner multiplicity is not a flaw, but a sign of humanity's prosaic nature, standing between the finite and the infinite. When understood in this light, quantum superposition becomes more than a scientific curiosity. It becomes a metaphor pointing toward a deeper structure of reality where openness, potentiality, and multiplicity are fundamental. Ibn Arabi reminds us that certainty at the surface often hides ignorance at the depth. Reality is richer than any single description, more alive than any fixed identity. To live wisely, then, is not to force reality into one shape, but to remain open to its many-faced. Ibn Arabi's understanding of reality begins with a radical premise: existence cannot be reduced to a single fixed state. The divine reality is infinite, and anything infinite cannot be exhausted by one form, one meaning, or one appearance. What we encounter as the world is not reality itself, but reality revealing itself in countless ways at the same time. Each form is true, yet none is complete. Multiplicity does not oppose unity, it is the way unity becomes visible. In this vision, God is one in essence, but many in manifestation. Ibn Arabi repeatedly emphasizes that the real discloses itself through infinite divine names and attributes. Every created thing becomes a specific locus where one aspect of the divine appears. A mountain may reveal majesty, a child may reveal innocence, a storm may reveal power, and mercy may appear through compassion. These manifestations are not sequential or exclusive, they coexist simultaneously across existence. The divine is not choosing one expression over another, but expressing all possibilities at once. This understanding dissolves the human habit of either or thinking. Ibn Arabi insists that reality operates through both and. God is transcendent and immanent, hidden and revealed, near and far at the same time. These are not contradictions, but simultaneous truths perceived from different angles. When the mind tries to force reality into a single interpretation, it collapses its richness into limitation. What feels like certainty is often just narrowed perception. Quantum superposition offers a striking parallel. In quantum physics, a particle does not occupy one definite state until it is measured. Instead, it exists as a range of possibilities simultaneously. It is only interaction or observation that brings one outcome into focus. Before that moment, reality remains open, undecided, and plural. Ibn Arabi's metaphysics suggests something similar on a spiritual level. Reality, before being grasped by perception, remains vast and multidimensional. For Ibn Arabi, forms are not illusions, but they are not ultimate either. They are moments of disclosure. Each manifestation is real, but relative. Just as a quantum system collapses into a particular state when observed, divine reality appears in a particular form when encountered by a perceiver. The limitation lies not in reality, but in the capacity of the observer. What you see is not all that exists, only what you are prepared to receive. This is why Ibn Arabi warns against absolutizing any single vision of truth. When someone claims exclusive access to reality, they mistake a manifestation for the source. Every belief, doctrine, or experience reveals something genuine, but none can claim totality. The divine remains greater than all descriptions, appearing differently to different hearts without contradiction at its own level. Multiplicity also explains why the world feels so diverse and paradoxical. Beauty and terror, harmony and chaos, compassion and severity coexist not because reality is confused, but because it is abundant. Ibn Arabi argues that if the divine were to manifest only one attribute, the universe would be impoverished. Full reality requires contrast, variation, and plurality. The coexistence of opposites does not signal disorder, but completeness. This view reshapes how meaning is understood. Meaning is not fixed inside objects. It arises through encounter. A single event may reveal wisdom to one person and hardship to another. The event itself holds multiple dimensions, and each observer draws forth a particular meaning. This does not relativize truth into chaos, but situates truth within relationship. Reality is relational, not static. Ibn Arabi's insistence on simultaneous manifestations also protects against spiritual rigidity. Growth becomes possible because no state is final. Every moment carries new potential. Just as quantum reality is not locked into one outcome until interaction occurs, human experience remains open to transformation. The divine continues to disclose itself in new ways, inviting the heart to expand rather than settle. When reality is understood as multi-layer rather than singular, humility naturally follows. One learns to hold perspectives lightly, to listen for meanings beyond one's own. Certainty gives way to receptivity. Instead of trying to capture truth, one learns to witness its unfolding. In this light, existence becomes a vast field of overlapping disclosures, each moment shimmering with more than one possibility, each form carrying more meaning than it can display at once, each perception revealing truth, while leaving much still concealed. Ibn Arabi places perception at the very center of how reality appears. For him, the world does not present itself as a neutral, fixed structure waiting to be discovered. Instead, reality discloses itself in accordance with the inner state of the one who perceives it. The divine is constant, but its manifestations vary because the hearts that receive them vary. What we experience is not simply what is out there, but what becomes visible through the lens of consciousness. According to Ibn Arabi, every human being carries a unique capacity, or readiness, shaped by temperament, experience, spiritual refinement, and intention. This readiness determines which divine attributes become visible in one's experience. A hardened heart may perceive the world as hostile or distant, while a softened heart may encounter the same world as intimate and compassionate. The difference does not lie in reality itself, but in the mode of perception. God reveals himself to each person in a form they can bear. This principle closely parallels the role of observation in quantum physics. In quantum experiments, the outcome is not fully determined until measurement occurs. Observation does not merely record reality, it participates in bringing a particular state into manifestation. Before observation, multiple possibilities coexist. After observation, one possibility becomes actual. Ibn Arabi would say that the heart functions in a similar way. Consciousness does not invent reality, but that selects which aspect of reality becomes manifest. Ibn Arabi often speaks of the heart as a mirror. A clean mirror reflects clearly. A distorted mirror produces fragmented images. The divine reality shines constantly, but its reflection depends on the condition of the mirror. This is why two people can encounter the same event, the same scripture, or the same relationship and emerge with entirely different meanings. Each perception is real, yet partial. No single viewpoint can claim exclusivity. This understanding dissolves rigid judgments. When someone insists that their perception is the only valid one, they reveal more about their own limitations than about reality itself. Ibn Arabi does not deny objective truth. Rather, he situates truth beyond any single perception. Objective reality exists, but it is too vast to be contained in one experience. Perception becomes a doorway, not a prison. The divine names play a crucial role here. Ibn Arabi teaches that God possesses infinite names, each representing a mode of action or presence. When a person encounters God as merciful, that is a genuine encounter. When another encounters God as majestic or overpowering, that too is genuine. These are not conflicting truths, but different disclosures of the same source. The perceiver's state determines which name becomes dominant in their experience. This dynamic also explains why spiritual paths differ without negating one another. Different traditions, practices, and symbols cultivate different modes of perception. Each trains the heart to recognize particular divine attributes. Conflict rises when people confuse their cultivated perception with the totality of truth. Ibn Arabi's vision allows for diversity without fragmentation, unity without uniformity. Perception shaping manifestation also implies responsibility. If the heart is clouded by fear, resentment, or arrogance, reality will appear harsh and constricted. if the heart is refined through humility, remembrance, and love, reality opens into meaning and depth. Ibn Arabi does not suggest that one can simply choose any reality at will, but he insists that inner work transforms how reality reveals itself. This insight carries profound ethical implications. How we see others affects how they appear to us. A person viewed as an enemy will manifest hostility. A person approached with compassion may reveal vulnerability or goodness. The other is not fixed. The relationship participates in shaping what becomes visible. Perception becomes a form of participation in creation. In quantum terms, the observer cannot be separated from the observed. Ibn Arabi makes the same claim spiritually. The human being is not standing outside reality, analyzing it from a distance. The human is woven into the fabric of manifestation. Consciousness is not a passive witness, but an active participant in how the divine becomes known. This does not lead to relativism, but to depth. Reality is not whatever we imagine, but it is far richer than any single vision can capture. True knowledge, for Ibn Arabi, is the ability to recognize the legitimacy of multiple perceptions while remaining rooted in humility. Wisdom lies not in fixing reality into one meaning, but in refining the heart so that more of reality can be received. When perception is purified, manifestation becomes expansive, revealing layers of meaning that were always present but previously unseen. Ibn Arabi's vision of reality rests on the idea that existence is never static, completed, or finished. Creation is not an event that happened once in the distant past and then settled into permanence. Instead, the universe is continuously being brought into existence at every instant. Each moment is a fresh act of divine creativity, a new disclosure that has never appeared before and will never repeat in exactly the same way. What seems stable is, in truth, the rapid and uninterrupted flow of renewal. This concept of continuous creation transforms how time and change are understood. Ibn Arabi argues that if the world were not being renewed at every moment, it would collapse back into nothingness. The universe depends entirely on the divine at every instant, not just for its origin, but for its ongoing existence. There is no stored-up existence from the past. There is only the present moment being constantly re-given. What we call continuity is simply the resemblance between successive acts of creation. In this framework, reality is not a solid structure, but a living process. Each instant carries a unique configuration of divine attributes, never exactly matching the one before. Even if forms appear similar, their inner reality is always new. This means that repetition is an illusion created by the limitations of perception. The mind strings moments together and calls it stability, but Ibn Arabi insists that at the deepest level, nothing remains the same for even the blink of an eye. Quantum physics approaches a similar insight from a scientific angle. At the quantum level, outcomes are not fully determined in advance. Reality unfolds probabilistically, with each interaction producing a new result. The future is not simply an extension of the past, it emerges moment by moment through interaction and measurement. Ibn Arabi's continuous creation echoes this dynamic view, where reality is not pre-written, but perpetually rising. This understanding radically changes the meaning of causality. Cause and effect are not rigid chains locked in advance. They are patterns that emerge through repeated divine action. What appears predictable does so only because certain manifestations recur with regularity, not because reality is mechanically fixed. The divine remains free at every moment, unconstrained by what came before. Every instant is an open field of possibility. Human experience is deeply affected by this principle. If reality is being renewed at every moment, then no state, whether joyful or painful, is final. Sorrow does not have the last word, nor does success guarantee permanence. Each breath brings a new creation, carrying the potential for transformation. Ibn Arabi sees hope not as emotional optimism, but as a metaphysical fact rooted in the structure of existence itself. This also reshapes responsibility and presence. If the present moment is a fresh creation, then attention becomes sacred. To be absent from the present is to miss the unfolding of reality. Ibn Arabi emphasizes awareness as a spiritual discipline because awareness aligns the human being with the rhythm of continuous creation. The more present one becomes, the more clearly one witnesses the ever-new disclosures of the divine. The idea of ever-new reality also dissolves rigid identities. A person is not the same self from one moment to the next. Each instant brings a subtle reconfiguration of the inner world. Habits may persist, but they persist through renewal, not through static continuity. This means that transformation is always possible. No one is trapped by who they were a moment ago. At the cosmic level, continuous creation ensures that the universe remains alive, responsive, and meaningful. The divine is not distant, having completed creation and withdrawn. Instead, the divine is intimately present, actively sustaining every atom at every moment. Existence itself becomes a dialogue between the infinite and the finite, renewed without interruption. In quantum terms, reality is not a frozen object, but an ongoing event. Ibn Arabi expresses this spiritually by insisting that existence is a verb rather than a noun. To exist is to be continuously bestowed. What we encounter as the world is the trace of an ongoing act, not the residue of a completed one. When this vision is internalized, fear of change softens. Change is no longer a threat but the natural texture of existence. Stability is revealed as a pattern within flux, not an escape from it. Trust grows not in fixed outcomes, but in the source that renews all things at every moment. Reality, then, is not something we move through, but something that continually comes toward us, freshly created, moment by moment, inviting awareness, humility, and participation.